Welcome to Life, Lafter Divorce, episode 21. I'm your host, Leanne Linsky.
Episode 21?
Yes,
21.
Like my age.
I was thinking like, oh, that's an important birthday, but not your important birthday.
Oh, right.
Anyways, I'm the boyfriend.
Well, welcome, boyfriend. We're at episode 21. Not really my age, but I have been there at one point in time. So happy birthday to anybody celebrating. You are officially legal. So is the show.
I don't know about that.
All right. Fair enough. In the meantime, if you guys have been doing something exciting or there's something you want to share, feel free to reach out and email us at info@lifelafterdivorce.com. Also, while you're online, feel free to rate, review, and subscribe to us on iTunes, Stitcher, and Libsyn.
Okay.
So there's that, you know.
Please do that. That actually means a lot to us. It helps us improve what we do for you guys. And it helps our ratings in the whole world of the World Wide Web stuff and iTunes. And that means more people can get to know about us and learn from us also.
Right. And we like a lot of friends. We do.
You do.
You do too, smarty pants. Smarty pants. I feel like I'm losing my voice or something a little bit after a few days at a conference. So
you're doing great.
All right. Well, cool. Well, today I'm pretty excited about our guest coming up. And before we get to her, I wanted to ask you about what kind of traps have you found yourself in after a breakup? You know, kind of like where you get into a rut.
Traps. What do you mean? Like okay, so you're down and you sort of, for me, I hide myself in my apartment maybe a little too much and overthink some things, or I don't know, you get a little depressed sometimes and you try to, at least me, I get caught in a reading or binge watching something and not taking care of myself very well. And yeah, it takes a little while to get over breakups or when bad things happen in your life, but it's hard. Those are hard things to deal with. How about yourself?
I do a little bit of that as well. I think, I think, and it's been different. There's been different things for different relationships for me. I mean, I feel so old all of a sudden, but I do a lot of that. I tend to isolate a bit, want to throw my covers over my head and just, be alone for a while and binge watch some things or read a book or find little ways to escape, in my own little bubble. I think, when I was a lot, I don't know. I remember a lot, like, especially after my divorce, a lot of people would try to pull me out and get me to go out and, and I don't know. It's weird because when they do that, my heart's not in it. I feel like everybody else is having a great time. I'm sitting there. I'm like, I'd rather be at home.
So I know, I get it. I understand that. I've been there. I think most of us who have been through breakups have been there, but it's the whole horrible cliche about turn that frown upside down kind of thing.
And you're just I don't want to do that.
Yeah, how do you do it? It takes a lot of willpower, a lot of reconfiguring your thought process, a lot of things to get yourself to change to be able to
do that, because I think there's a certain amount of time that it's healthy to do those things, to sit back and to reflect and to take time alone.
23 hours and 59 minutes. You got less than a day.
Is that what the time frame is?
Sure.
I love it. I think it depends, and it may also depend sometimes on how long you were with that person.
Yeah.
It's if it was a couple of months, then maybe 23 hours and 59 minutes. If it were more than that, a couple of years or something, it might take a little bit of time. But I think there's a healthy range in there. And then there's a range where it becomes a little bit too much and it's time to change things up. But that's not always easy for everybody.
No, it is not. So how do you do that? Do you go seek professional help? Do you rely on your friends? How do you do it?
I think it could be any one of those things depending on the person and what their comfort level is. And I think too, it could be, what kind of relationship were you just getting out of and what kind of circumstances you came across and experienced. But at some point I think something has to click inside of us and we have to make a choice. and see if we want to reach out to that support or not and go from there. But I think that,
but it comes down to maybe having a little bit of help, but it comes down to you yourself making that choice and saying, I'm going to find that silver lining and I'm going to make the best of this and go forward in a new direction.
Yep, absolutely. It does. It comes down like you have to flip that switch on in yourself, and hopefully you're ready sooner rather than later. And sometimes I don't know that it's all that easy for everybody to do, but there are people. The cool thing is there are people who know how to do that and they're offering support. And I think we're lucky that we have people out there to learn that from.
True.
Which leads me to our guest for today, which I'm really excited about because I met her a long, long time ago in a land far away. No, we met quite a few years ago. And I just have always remembered her being so vibrant and so positive and so reflective of things, but yet turning it in such a way that she's able to move forward quickly, but in a healthy way. It's just remarkable. So since we've met, she has written 2 books, which I'm really excited about. So let me tell you a little bit about Charly. Charly is the author of How to Date When You're Famous and Thank Goodness You Dumped His Ass. Another reason I love Charly. Charly is a master at closing the gap between what you're experiencing and what you want to experience quickly. She accomplishes it in a matter of 1 to 3 hours that what traditional methods of coaching and therapy often fail to achieve in months and years. And even more, the way she recycles your experiences bounce any baggage to the curb, leaving you clear and renewed. So from your personal and professional life to enjoying harmony between the two, Charly's insight helps you gain the results and satisfaction you crave more easily, swiftly, and thoroughly for your happiness that keeps on expanding. So
she sounds awesome.
Yeah. And she is pretty darn awesome. Wait till you hear this. I'm really excited that I was able to reconnect and touch base with her. So without further ado, Charly Emery. Hey, Charly.
Hey, Leanne.
Hey, thanks for coming to Life, Lafter Divorce today. I really appreciate it.
It is a total pleasure to be here.
I am so excited because you and I have actually not talked in probably a decade, if that is even possible. And it's crazy because the last time we spoke, we were both living in Vegas at the time. So actually it's been longer than that. We were both living in Vegas and we were working on a film together. And I know since then you've done remarkable things like wrote a book and put together a consulting business on dating and relationship advice and all of the kinds of fascinating things. And I'm dying to catch up and find out what your life has been like since your last divorce.
What a fantastic question. Actually, it's a fantastic answer, I guess. Life being lived. And in the spirit of your life, laughter, divorce, boy, has there been so much laughter since that divorce, which is really, really fantastic. So, oh my goodness, where should we begin? Well, you know that I'm speaking to you from another country today.
Yes. Yes, let's tell our listeners a little bit about where you are in this beautiful setting.
I am in the Netherlands right now, only about 20 minutes south of the fabulous city of Amsterdam. So in 20 minutes, I'm like right smack dab in one of the world's most gorgeous cities. But here at my house, it is absolutely beautiful and peaceful with a big garden to just, you feel like you're in a little slice of paradise. You'd never think the city is so close by.
Wow. Oh, I'm so envious right now. This is, I'm like, I want to be there. I'm going to come visit, I think. So big change.
You're welcome to. We have a very nice guest suite we're getting ready. So, and it's pretty nice.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, be careful. We might be there. And I'm laughing because it's so different from where we met, which is in, the middle of the desert in Vegas. And now you're in a beautiful setting with a garden and actual vegetation growing other than a cactus. So,
oh gosh, that's so funny. That's true. We still do live part-time in Las Vegas. So now we have that really nice contrast of the desert and, being out here, which is ironically a lot like where I grew up, because I grew up in the Boston area in New England. So it's really amazing, when you end up, you're going to grade school and you're learning about the Dutch settlers and how they were part of who built the area that you're growing up in. And then all of a sudden you end up with a dashing Dutchman as your partner and you're living in that country. You'd never imagine.
No, not at all. That's pretty wonderful. So just so we know, you were married. How long ago was that when you were previously married?
Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, I got married. I want to say it was 2002 when I got married. And the crazy part was my divorce took longer than my marriage before the divorce.
Really?
Yes, it did. It was, I really, really learned, well, you know what? For a lot of people out there, and this is where the way that you handle your divorce can be such a fantastic way to pave a path for literally future bliss and happiness, because so much of what messes with us in life is really how we think and how we perceive what's going on around us. And it doesn't mean that, people don't do things that are really lousy or do things that are even straight out wrong in a sense, but still, there is a way for us to deal with it. And if we let it get into our psyche and that's what we're focused on, we just end up being miserable. And so, of course, going through a divorce where I was trying to end it and he was just being difficult, it was like, okay, we really got to get my head together. But what was neat is, coming back to your question, like, okay, the last time you were divorced, what happened? The beauty of it is when I wrote my first book, Thank Goodness You Dumped His Ass, Use Those Mr. Wrongs to Lead You Straight to Mr. Right. The title of that was really inspired by what I was going through and how I wanted to deal with it, because the divorce was taking so long. But at the same time, when I thought about, wow, how did I get in this situation? I thought, okay, if I've got to deal with this, I don't want to just look at how I can improve my relationship life. I want to look at every place in my life where I may have been holding myself back or limiting the kind of joy and experience that I really wanted to have. And so that was really where the Thank Goodness You Dumped His Ass came from. It was like, thank goodness, because this is inspiring me to look at every part of my life. And that's what I started doing. And so the book was part of me putting those pieces together, but also providing something for other, really it's written toward women, but it's very universal, the information. So it was all about those two things that hold us back, which are not really being clear and giving ourselves permission to have the experiences we want. And the other side of it is sabotaging those new experiences and opportunities that come because you're too focused on something that already happened to a point where you keep manifesting it. So after I wrote that book, I really just, kind of broke free. And it was a period of a lot of years. I wrote a second book inspired by my celebrity clients, which was all about the ways that when you are either famous or in a high profile position, or perhaps you're not, but you're dating someone who is, the pitfalls that can often occur that you can completely redirect to get better results with that too. So I really got into that zone and was having a great time. And living in California, at that point I had moved to California.
Yeah.
And what ended up happening is that I was really just living life and enjoying life. And at some point, I remember saying, I really want to travel. Like, I missed the East Coast. I didn't want to live on the East Coast, but I thought, well, maybe I can live part-time on the East Coast. And I really had no idea. I thought, well, maybe I'll manifest a job there, or I'll, who knows, maybe I'll even meet someone who lives there and I can travel back and forth, because I can pretty much do my work from anywhere. And it was such a funny thing because that's how I ended up meeting my partner. I'll save that for another piece if you want to hear about it. But basically, it was really getting into a flow. And instead of looking at the divorce as an ending or something negative or a failure, which a lot of people make the mistake of doing, I looked at it purely as opportunity to learn more about me, learn more about what I want, be clear about maybe what I needed to shift or how I could look at things in order to create that experience that I wanted to have in my life. And so it just became a flow from there.
Yeah, that's amazing. You really did. Because I remember when I had met you, I think you were still married at that time, right? No.
Yes.
Yeah, you were. And I think I saw you one other time when you were living in LA, and I had come out here because I was taking classes, and we had met up. And I was so impressed because the one thing I've always noticed about you is your confidence. And you have a tremendous presence about yourself that you go for it. There's just a presence about you that is wonderful to be around. And I noticed that a lot, especially when we were visiting in LA that one time. And to hear you tell this story now, I can see that. Thinking back, I'm like, yeah, I could see how you took that. Your attitude has always been positive. That's something I've noticed from day one when we first met. And you've always been very spiritual and very reflective of things, if I recall, which I think is a great quality to have, especially when experiencing something like divorce that can be so traumatic and life-changing. Because, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say,
Yeah.
Well, thank you, first of all. And yes, you're absolutely right. And what people don't realize is that no matter what it is that you're talking about, we are where we are. Nothing that we think will ever change where we are, but it can change how we feel about where we are and definitely what is going to come next. And that's where the power is. So if you beat yourself up over something, then it's not going to change the situation you're in. And at the same time, now you're going to feel terrible about yourself. And how do you take yourself forward when you're basically beating yourself up? You can't. It doesn't, you can't get there from there, to where you want to go. So I think that more than anything, we also hear a lot of these experts out there, and they're always trying to tell us about how traumatic this is and blah, blah, blah. And, I think it's great for us to acknowledge our feelings. We're human beings and we're going to have them, but we need to be very, very deliberate about whether we indulge those things and how much we allow ourselves to think about them. And
Right.
you can look back on a relationship, or look at, like in my case with the divorce, I looked at what was going on. And when we decided to split, it was actually a very beautiful thing. I mean, he had a career that was very culturally based, and he really wanted to be in a specific place doing something very specific. And really our relationship came like 2-3 steps behind that. So as much as I was willing to partner with him, it became almost impossible. And so when we decided to split, it was, you know what? In order for this to really work in a way that is going to make sense for both of us, one of us has to step off personal path. And that won't be good for either one of us. And that was really kind of how it went. And I'm not really sure 100% why he chose to drag it out. Maybe it was just something that he was sort of fighting with himself about. Who knows? But at the same time, there wasn't going to be any value for me if I was dwelling on any of the negative aspects of it. The best thing that anyone can do when they're going through a divorce is recognize that, yes, it can be difficult and there are feelings involved. And a big part of the feelings that you have of loss really have to do with all the unspoken sort of subconscious expectations you had about future times that you're now aware of are not going to happen. So the best thing for you to do is start looking at how would you like to fill that time? Not necessarily with another person right away, but just with you. And that's something that you can give yourself no matter what you're going through right now in the moment.
That is the really good point that you just made. Is I do think that when we go through a divorce, a lot of the time we spend grieving isn't about the past. It's about the dreams of what we hope to come.
Exactly.
And grieving about things that had never happened or we had hoped. Our hopes and dreams have been shattered, and it's time to build new hopes and dreams. And in some cases, like you had mentioned, your divorce was fairly amicable. I mean, it dragged out a while, but you both understood the terms on which you were leaving and had accepted them. And, I'm sure you've worked with clients who weren't quite at that place and one wanted out and the other didn't. In those kind of situations, what is a good direction for someone to take if they're having a hard time accepting that it's over?
Well, this technically was my story as well, because we had a lovely moment at the beginning where it was beautiful and honoring, and then it was completely the opposite after that. And so I literally had to, on a daily basis, say, I'm not going to engage. And I think that really a lot of times people spend way too much time thinking about why somebody is doing what they're doing or thinking about what that person is doing. It doesn't serve you. I know it probably sounds crazy, but the truth is you need to put it on the shelf and say, you know what? The bottom line is we are on this path. We were on this path together. Now our paths are going in different ways. And the only thing that serves me is to manage myself to the best way that I can and let go of what that other person is doing. You cannot control another person. You can't control what they do. And it definitely does not help you when you are focusing in on things that they're doing and then trying to figure out why, when in truth, you will never know that answer. You can't know what drives another person. And even sometimes when they tell you, it's not always accurate in that moment, or it changes for them. So you really have to recognize that when you get into that process, and really it's the same thing when you're in a relationship and you're in sync with each other, you're still not controlling each other. What you hope is that you choose a partner with whom you can continue to feel inspired when you're with that person, but the inspiration still comes from you, and then your partner can inspire you more and you can inspire your partner, and then it's sort of like this wonderful, combination. But when you have a partner that is now being hateful or disrespectful, and that's, I went through that. I mean, I couldn't believe it was the same person, but then I kind of looked and I went, wait a minute, I did actually see this tendency with that person. Or I remember a story from the past when he was talking about someone else and he actually did something that's kind of in this same lane, but it was with somebody else. And that actually gave me a little bit of relief. But more than anything, I had to recognize that he was making choices and that it didn't matter what was driving his choices. The only thing that mattered is that I needed to find a way to just remind myself, those are his choices. There's nothing that you can really do. So let's just focus in on how you can get through this and how you can get as much good stuff going on in your life and as much enjoyment as possible. And stop expecting him to be different. I should say that because that's one of the number one things that gets in a person's way, is that not only are they focusing on what the other person is doing, but the frustration comes from you wanting them to be different or do it differently or not be doing what they're doing. And while it's understandable, it is a complete waste of your time, and it is exactly what fuels your frustration and your misery. Because they're not going to be different. They're just not going to be different.
It's so true. And it's almost an addiction or obsession over somebody. It becomes obsessive. And I think back to when you and I went through our divorces, there was no Facebook or MySpace or social media that we could even begin doing all of this extra obsessing on the internet. Whereas today, oh my God, like it's ridiculous now. You can't get away from people like we could, 15, 20 years ago,
Right.
to a different degree. So you kind of have to eliminate those avenues as well, to kind of clear a path. And I think, I see so many people, younger and older, using the internet and social media as other ways to manipulate or to control a situation instead of focusing and moving ahead.
Yes. And at the core of that, I don't care what kind of technology or social media you add, at the core of that is your lack of discipline.
Yeah.
And the sad part is I have always taught whenever I've consulted with people, I've really taught them what it means to put you first. Putting you first is not about, I'm going to do whatever I want to do at the expense of others, no matter what the cost. That's not putting you first, because if you have to live your life looking over your shoulder, waiting for something to come back on you, that's not enjoyable. So putting you first is really about kind of being a zoom lens, like a camera, where you zoom in on what it is that you want, and then you zoom out as you're looking at the choices you're making to say, okay, how does the course of action that I'm taking here, how does it affect the big picture of my life and how I want to feel and how I want to live? And that will always give you the insight to know whether a choice that you're making is really a choice you should be making or a choice you need to chill out on. And when it comes to people doing stuff, using social media, practically stalking their exes on a computer, that is a choice and it's not going to feel good. And so you really have to be disciplined and say, you don't beat yourself up for being tempted to do it, but you acknowledge the fact that that is not going to bring you value. It's just not. And if anything, it's going to fan the flames again of your frustration, bring about more obsessive, bring about more hurt. And so, we're really getting back to something that's very simple, that does not change no matter what we're looking at in the world in terms of technology or any of that. And that is you making your feelings and your self a priority to you, so that you can be very deliberate about the choices you make, the things that you think, and the way that you handle yourself, exclusive of what someone else is doing that you don't have control over.
Yes, exactly. And very well said. Thank you. And also what you made me think of is a lot of times I hear other women, or men even, when we go through this, and to your point of self-care isn't hurting other people or having, no other thoughts of anybody else and just doing what you want to do necessarily, but it's about making strong choices for self-care. And there's a difference between taking care of yourself and just completely throwing caution to the wind and like a bull in a china shop handling life, because I think too, we feel like we need to all of a sudden have a very tough girl exterior or a tough guy, and put up a wall and drink whiskey and, have a few one night stands and go run wild and do all these things. But that's not that's like swinging to the other extreme rather than finding a balance and really focusing in on ourselves and really taking care of ourselves. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I think
I agree with you 100%. And probably one of my biggest pet peeves, or that really saddens me, and it certainly propels my work with women and with men, is the fact that the media has completely, and when I say media, I don't mean just the mainstream media in terms of what they promote, but also the experts and the people that have sort of jumped on this train and all these so-called women's empowerment people. They have done nothing but disempower women. The idea that you need to throw yourself into the world like a martyr, or that you ever, any time a day, anytime in any day, need to prove to anyone, including yourself, who you are, is the biggest lie they could tell you. And that is what they have been motivating women to do. And this whole idea about, the one night stands. Look, you're going to do what you want to do. And if you feel really inspired to do something and it feels right for you and you feel good about it, then that's a choice that you made for you. But this idea that you're going to almost take on a persona or a character, or you're going to be tough, or one of the ones I love is, being the cool girl. So the cool girl isn't needy. And I'm like, well, what's needy? There's a big between being needy and being honest, and being needy and being vulnerable, and being needy and having actual emotions that you value. And it has really set women back so far, because they're willing to jump into bed with someone, but they're afraid to tell someone what they want in their lives. You realize how backwards that is? That's not empowerment.
Right. And I think that some women, that is who they are, and that does suit them, and that's fine. But I think a lot of people do try to jump on this bandwagon and take on a persona that's not truly fitting of who they are at their core. And, just jumping into other situations and trying to be something you're not, and ignoring. I think being able to speak up and say what you actually want is so much more empowering than just going the other way and trying to be a cool kid. And I hear you, and I see exactly what this happens in movies and books and everything that's kind of coming out, that people are trying to, do exact opposite. And I agree. What is needy? What is defined as needy? That you do need love and that you do want a monogamous relationship, is that a sign of weakness in today's world? Because that's the message that I'm hearing from so many other people now. And I happen to personally disagree with that. I think that there's something to be said about sending strong boundaries and saying what you mean what you say, but don't say it mean. Like, you don't have to be a jerk to get your point across.
No, and usually when you're being a jerk to get your point across, that's coming out of your own insecurity and your own, when you say, okay, when you said that your impression of me is that I'm confident, and I appreciate that. But, that just comes out of me not being willing to give up my own enjoyment in life. Like, I won't do it. I don't even remember if you knew that I was a trauma survivor, but I spent 7 years, 50 pounds heavier, being in a relationship that completely didn't serve me because I didn't know how to handle with rape trauma. And when those memories resurfaced, I never went to a therapist. I never read books. Oh my God, I did not read a single book on trauma. And I'm not saying this against anyone who has, but what I'm saying is that those are not the things that are necessary for you to heal and shift your life. What I recognized is that my biggest problem was that I had told myself I could not have the life that I wanted to have. That was the problem. It wasn't the rape. It wasn't the relationship I got in after. It wasn't any of those things. It was coming from me. And one of the greatest pieces of news I think there is on the planet is to know how much direction we each have over our lives. We don't necessarily have control over them and how everything sort of comes together, but we do have incredible, incredible direction. And it starts with how we think, how we look at things, and what we choose. And if we're going to listen to somebody on the Today Show telling us what is now the model of the empowered modern woman, if I hear like the empowered modern woman one more time, I'm like, oh, really? So she's the woman who is doing all of these things to check off boxes because somebody has decided that that is now the modern form of woman, rather than just doing the things that she really feels inspired to do that make her happy and leaving anything off the table that doesn't. What happened to choice? What happened to being in touch with yourself? So I understand when I work with women, and especially women coming out of relationships or looking for relationships, it is very important to understand the difference between being needy, which is looking for something outside yourself to fulfill yourself or give you that feeling of satisfaction. That will get you in trouble, whether you're looking at money, a particular job, a place where you live, or a relationship. Any of that will get you in trouble because it means that you're no longer in the place of directing your life. But to be open and clear and excited and to want a relationship, to want to stay home and raise your kids if that's what you want to do, to wanting a career, any of those things, that's an individual choice. And the minute that we take that individuality away and we start saying, well, you should want this group of things, and you should fulfill this part of yourself by having this group of things, we've taken away from that individual woman or that individual man.
Right. I agree. And I think that's a lot of the thing. It's going back to the media and what we hear today is, you have to fit check off these boxes and be this kind of person. And these are the qualities you should have to be successful or to be independent. And I think each person is an individual, and everybody's going to have different wants and needs and different things to fill. And yeah, absolutely. And it doesn't, just because it works for one person doesn't mean it's going to work for the rest of us. And it should be a judgment-free zone, Well,
and that's really the funny part about it is that, we have all these women's empowerment groups that have come up and all they do is judge. It's tolerance, it's like intolerance in the name of tolerance. So you say, we're here to help women rise. Okay, well, a woman rising or a man rising or people in general, that is about you being more and more connected to yourself and being able to have the experiences in your life that really bring you joy, that you love, that you have an interest in. That's where it comes from. And that's going to look different for every single person out there. And of course, we're all going to have our challenges along the way that are part of stretching us. And I think, getting back to the topic of divorce, this is what's so exciting about divorce.
Yes.
Divorce, when you're going through a divorce, or maybe you're on the other side of the divorce, the best part about it, and I covered this a lot in Thank Goodness You Dumped His Ass, is that you are so clear about what you didn't like and what you don't want, which helps you be so incredibly clear about what you would really like and what you really want. So instead of continuing to think about what you didn't like and how it happened and how it went down and which night it happened on and blah, 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 get excited about the fact that if you change your focus from the side of what you didn't like, you can use that for the clarity of what you know now through that experience will really make you feel good and is really important to you. And then get excited about the fact that you've given yourself the opportunity to now experience it.
Absolutely. And it really is a huge opportunity. And going through divorce is different than just breaking up in a relationship. And, different than a non-official commitment, if you will. But because in going through a divorce, we end up, it's a deeper cut, I guess is a way to put it, a deeper cut into a change in our lives. It's not just we lived together for a while and now we're separating our things out and I'm going my way and you're going your way. There's a lot of things to be undone. There's a lot of cleaning out to be had. There's, you're going through financials, you're going through every single nook and cranny of your life to break apart from somebody else, right? And
yes. And what I would say on that, because I remember initially going through my divorce and I remember thinking I used the exact same term. There's a lot that I need to undo. And you know what? These days, I guess the greatest thing that I could offer up in that line is you can't undo anything. So instead of even thinking that you are now trying to undo anything, just think of the fact that you are now renewing. And I know it sounds like a little play on words, but it is a perspective shift. You cannot undo, you cannot go back, you cannot redo. And that's why people torture themselves. And the other thing that a lot of times people don't realize when they're going through divorce or after a divorce is that, there's so much wisdom. Like even when I was saying that once you've experienced things that are clear to you about, okay, this was great, but I really didn't like this, or that made me feel this way, or and so you have that other side of clarity that says, wow, this is what I really like, and this is what's really important to me. Well, the biggest mistake is in taking that newfound clarity that has come from your own growth and then using that perspective to now look back on something that happened before you were in this place. See, you made the choices that you made and you had the experiences that you had because of who you were at that point in your life, in addition to who anybody else was that was participating with you. But it's still about who you were. And as time goes on, even if, there's something like that, well, for a lot of people, affection is one of the ways that we show love. And I've known people who they choose a partner who loves them, but who does not like holding hands, does not like being physically affectionate. And for that person, no matter as time goes on, a lot of times they cannot handle it because it is really a loss on something that they want. Well, you have to remember that in that example, if you get to a point where you realize that that's one of the things that you just don't want to go without in your life anymore, you can't use that newfound clarity about where you are today and the point that you've reached to say, I'm going to give that to myself and I want that in my life, to then judge yourself for way back when you really didn't know that it was going to be that important to you. Mm-hmm. And when you knew maybe you didn't like it because it was missing, but at the same time, you thought that all the other things outweighed it. Wisdom is wisdom and it comes over time and there's no way to shortcut it or predict it. So in truth, the way that you set yourself up for the greatest relationship, and really with everybody, whether it's your friends that you bring into your life, it's about having that clarity about who you are and being bold enough to understand that if you don't follow that, you're going to feel like something's missing and you're not going to feel as good in your life as you could. And so with divorce, one of the things that people feel why they feel so significantly about it, it's so much about how other people are treating them and how other people start looking at them differently. So if you stop looking at things as something you're undoing and look at something within yourself, a part of your life that you're renewing, now you are free to look and say, as you are renewing your life and opening it up in different ways, to say, who's going to stay and who's going to go? Because if you have friends that don't treat you as respectfully or as kindly or include you the same way because now you're divorced, let it go and renew. Believe me, you will have new friends. You will attract where you are. You will attract people who are in sync with you. So instead of trying to undo and hold on to, let go and renew, and everything else will fill in. And it will fill in like in ways that you cannot imagine. And that's how I ended up living in 2 countries.
I was just going to say, and you're a perfect example of this. I mean, it's been, I know that we've connected and stuff on social media and stuff over the years, but for us, to see how you've evolved and where you've taken your life into new directions, you walk the walk. You don't just talk the talk, you live exactly what you're saying. And you're a perfect example to that. And how did you end up taking what you learned from your divorce and implementing it into a new relationship? I mean, clearly you've become very good at speaking up for yourself, being very clear on what your wants and needs are. But how else would you say, is there anything that surprised you when you stepped into a new relationship?
Well, let's see. when it comes to, well, first of all, I think the biggest thing is that, I love relationships. That's why I've been in the relationship realm as a resource for people for a long time. I always understood that my relationships were always a reflection of what I wanted and what I told myself was either possible or gave myself permission to have. And a lot of us that grow up and we're told to be thankful, and we always want to be thankful. Sometimes that's how it reflects in a relationship, is that you are, it's not that you're necessarily seeing things that you don't like, but maybe you're just not feeling the way that you really want to feel in the relationship that you're in. And you start going to those places of looking at all the good points in a person. And so you don't give yourself permission to say, this is a really good person and there's nothing wrong with this person, but I just don't feel like it's the relationship that I really want to experience. And so, it's really, really important to be able to look at that and recognize that relationships, even though it's with another person, it's really not about the person. And you're not really after a partner. You're wanting an experience. That's really what you're talking about. So whoever you choose is who you create that experience with. And so the experience you have is going to be a direct result of the person that you choose to partner with. And so we get, a lot of times we have this thing of measuring and, they've been together this many years, which is fabulous. If it works, it works. But we need to be less worried about how long we're with someone, or whether or not we break up, or how many relationships we've had, and be much more concerned about how we feel in the relationship and celebrate the clarity that we're gaining. So with me, I was single for a while, but I wasn't looking, like, the way I looked at it with the lessons from my divorce were to give myself permission to just fully engage in life and enjoy my life. So what that did is I started being more picky about my friends and the time that I spent. I didn't want to be around people that were gossiping or that just felt icky, or, sometimes you have, like, women have gotten, if we look at the TV shows on right now, it's horrific the way women treat each other. The friendships that we grew up with in our junior high days, even, were so much healthier than most of the relationships that you see with adult women today. And that's really sad. So I became more picky about all of those things. And what it did is my life just filled in. And so with my partner, he and I met actually on a business website for niche businesses. He had seen that I had written a couple of books. He had a book that was in a completely different arena, but he was looking for an editor. And he said, well, wow, would you want to do that? I said, yeah, I've edited, I've ghostwritten. Sure. We built a friendship. So what I want to express for people out there that are like, either going through a divorce or maybe just after a divorce, like, get so excited about this, okay? Because you don't have to do it. Like, the whole idea that you need to come up with all the steps of how everything's going to unfold, that's the part that's not true. The only thing that you need to learn how to do is think deliberately in ways that serve you. Throw out the thoughts. Don't let yourself dwell on stuff that does not make you feel good. And really make that a priority, that that you're thinking and you're making choices that support you. Because when I was just writing and enjoying, and, I had plenty of people say to me, oh, well, you're in relationships and you've written these books, but you're single. I said, yeah. And, well, why are you single? I said, well, he just hasn't shown up yet. Like, what do you mean? Why am I single? I know the experience I want and it's coming, but I'm living my life. I'm enjoying my life. Life is great. And I can remember people wanting to set me up. And I was like, nah, I just knew at times, no, that person is not going to be for me. And they used to tease me about it because I said, here's the thing. I know what I want. I know the experience I want. I added a few things, like I'd love to spend more time in Europe, and I'd love to even have a partner that could be on the East Coast, so I could at least go from East to West, because I missed the New England. But here's where, when you just focus on having a good time, living your life, feeling inspired, and being curious about life and just knowing that automatically great things are going to happen because you are treating yourself well, the universe sort of fills in. So he and I meet on a business website. We start developing a friendship because of I thought he was married because he was so professional. And so I got inspired, I think like 2 or 3 messages in, to tell him that when he was asking me about clients he could refer to me, I got inspired to mention, oh, and by the way, if you know of any exceptional men, like I'm really at a point where I am super excited about a fabulous relationship. So I essentially told him that I was looking for him. What if I never mentioned it? I just mentioned it because I was like, well, what have I got to lose? Maybe he knows somebody really amazing. And it turned out it was him.
Wow. Wow. And what did he surprise you? What was his response?
Well, he sort of joked, he said, actually, I do, including myself. And then he said, but I would need to know what you think of as a fabulous relationship and what you think of as an exceptional man. And he was super smart because he was at a point in his life where he was also open for a great relationship, but he wanted it all in a sense. He didn't want the 80-20 relationship. He wanted that, like, we are in sync. We love, it doesn't mean you're always going to see eye to eye on everything. I mean, we help each other grow. So sometimes we're a little bit like, I don't know, but it always brings one of us, whoever is the other side, to a higher level. So it's amazing. But he wanted that, like, right on target relationship with a partner that he would adore. And I wanted the same thing. So that was his way of sort of, letting me know, well, actually I'm single, but he wasn't necessarily putting himself out there fully because he wanted to know,
yes,
what are my thoughts? How do I think? Who am I?
Right.
That would tell him whether or not he would even be interested in me. So we went through that for, I don't know, I think it was like 2 months of discussing everything from politics to religion to finances to the economy, and really get how we think and what we think about ourselves in the world. And it was so clear that we said, well, you know what? We are going to be friends forever. So let's meet. And there wasn't any pressure about a romance because we already knew, oh my God, our worst case scenario is we're going to have so much fun. We both love food. We're going to open up a bottle of wine. And now instead of having like 18 hours in between our responses, we get to talk in real time.
Right.
The rest is history. It was immediate.
I love it. That is so inspiring and gives so much hope, I think. And because, again, it goes back to you're walking the walk and you're living what you're talking. You're living proof that it works.
It really does. And it's something to get so excited about. And I guess the reason why I really want to share that too is I want people who are listening to understand that in my life at that time, I was working from home I was living in Calabasas. I belonged to a wine site or whatever, go with my girlfriend. But for the most part, I was not out. I don't do clubs and bars and stuff like that. So I wasn't out. And I could have easily sat in that position and thought, how am I ever going to meet someone? Because I'm working in my house every day, Skyping with my clients. Some of them come to my living room. But instead, I knew that I was enjoying my life. I did stuff with my friends. I went out to eat. And I just knew that at some point in time, it was inevitable. So either someone was going to introduce me, or it was just one of those things where I said, you know what, it's going to be really fun to see how this evolves. But at the same time, I was living my life in a way that there was no counting of the days. There was no when is it going to happen, because there wasn't any reason to do that. I was enjoying my life. And that is the key. And that's the beauty of divorce.
Right.
It is a renewal. It's not a reset so much. It is a renewal. It is something brand new that is opening itself to you. And depending on how you look at it, you will either have magic like that you cannot even imagine, where from your living room on your desk, you're like, okay, you meet the absolute true love of your life in the most crazy way that you could never imagine. it just comes to you.
Right.
But
well, you were being your authentic self. You were being your authentic self. Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Beautiful. I love it. This has been so inspiring talking to you. And I'm sitting here thinking, why aren't we talking more? We should definitely talk more often than every 10 years or so. And I love hearing how you've changed your life and how you renewed everything, and that you're being your authentic self and you're truly happy. And that's just wonderful to hear. And I will, by all means, share all of your contact information, all of information on both of your books that you've written, which I have sitting here in front of me, by the way, my autographed copies. So thank you. I love them with all the Charlie-isms in there. It's a great book. And I know you had been doing videos for a while, and you mentioned earlier that you were going to get back to doing those regular videos on tips with Miss Fix-It, right? Otherwise known as Miss Fix-It.
And I'm writing a new book, which I'm really excited about. I'm keeping sort of the biggest details of it quiet right now, but it's just going to be, people are going to get so much out of it, because it won't matter what age you are. It's really going to be great to help people get that direction in their relationship life. And I think the one thing that I really, really want people to understand is that, it's not always easy to go from a place where you're hurt or where you really believed in something and it doesn't go that way. I know it's not easy. So it's not always easy to just go into that place of faith where you just know it's going to work out, and you don't have to. There is this beautiful space called curiosity. And if you kind of do the math like this, I'm going to enjoy my life, and I'm going to find all the things that make me feel really good, that just make me feel alive. And I'm going to enjoy them as I can. And if it's something I need to save up for, I'll put a little money away for it, but I'll still be doing something right now that I enjoy, and making sure that I give myself the friends that I enjoy. And then just be curious about how the things in your life that maybe you can't see a path to yet, or you can't even imagine, like how I could ever have had my dashing Dutchman come across the world through a computer like that. Just be curious. That's enough. Because when you're curious, you're open. And when you do start dating, I think this is probably the most important thing. I almost forgot to mention this. In that part of it, just remember that you never have to be afraid of being truthful about what you want. Because if you know what it is that you want to experience, you're not doing yourself any favors by trying to manipulate someone or be nice enough to keep them in the picture if you can't really have the experience with them that you want. And one of the most probably meaningful parts of a great experience with someone in a relationship is the ability to relax and be yourself and not feel like you have to be a certain person. That, doing that in a relationship is so exhausting. It completely takes over you. So make that a priority, that this is a person who gets you. And as you're out there dating, just be curious what someone is showing you on a date. Are they helping you affirm something that you want? Are they showing you what you want? And as you're dating, if it looks good, continue to be curious. And that way, you'll never have to look for red flags, because anything that conflicts with how you want to feel, you will know to ask the question to get the clarity and figure out, is that just a little miscommunication? Or you will get the clarity that, oh yeah, great, we're on track, or ooh, no, this is not what I'm looking for. And celebrate that clarity that you're getting, because the more you know yourself and the more you give yourself permission to experience what you want, the more easily it will come in your life, and you will never have to worry about recognizing it. You'll feel it and know it.
That's awesome. I can't wait for this new book. Now you have me curious. So
Very exciting.
That is great.
That is great. Well, I definitely keep me posted as to when the book is coming out so I can share it with our listeners and everything. And I'm going to put all your contact information, your website in here so that if they want to grab a copy of your book, either one of them, which are both great, they can do so. So thank you again for being on. I really, really appreciate it. This has been wonderful.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And it's so great to reconnect with you. And remember, now you have somebody over here in the Netherlands, right outside of Amsterdam. We're close to everything. So you guys get that like itch to take a European vacation. You have a fabulous resource right here.
Awesome. We will.
All right. Thank you, Leanne. And thank you to everybody who took the time to listen to this. And just know, I wish you the absolute best life and love has to offer. So just open it up and go for it. You have nothing to lose and everything to gain.
Thank you, Charly.